I am not assured. The government does not have a handle on crime. It seems to me that it is about time they appreciate that crime is going out of sync. And it is one thing when Peter Bunting compares crime figures with the second half of last year and get the feeling that crime is not trending upwards. But I have been pointing out every week that crime is trending upwards. But when you compare the first half of this year with the last half of last year, he keeps saying crime is trending down. So you get a feeling of satisfaction or a false security when you're comparing last year's second half of last year with the first half of this year. With the escalation over the last couple of weeks, then it demonstrates, or should demonstrate to ministers and the cabinet, that you have to put crime and the reduction of criminality as a major priority. Because if you don't keep crime under control, everything else will be affected. If cabinet has given him everything and he's not showing the results, then the answer is yes. But I'm not too sure that he has got what he has asked for from cabinet. He needs the support of his colleagues at cabinet. It is the cabinet that should be ensuring that a number of legislative matters and policy directions are actually put in place. From the beginning of the year, I've asked for legislation, anti-gang legislation and DNA. And why I've asked for it, because when we left office last year, we had signed off on anti-gang legislation. I was chairman of the legislation committee, and I met with all the stakeholders, including the Commissioner of Police and his senior officers, to sign off on the anti-gang legislation. And the DNA legislation was ready, and just for it to come to the legislation committee and cabinet. And I have no doubt that those two pieces of legislation should have been before the cabinet. And the fact that I've been calling for both pieces of legislation, the country has been calling for those pieces of legislation, and cabinet and the parliamentary group have not brought it to the parliament, it shows that it is not only Peter Bunting, but the cabinet seems not to be aware of the escalating crime problems across the country. I'm not too sure that increased penalties necessarily reduce criminality. You first have to apprehend them, and it is a well-known criminological fact that it is not the penalty that deters, it is the likelihood of being caught. So unless we are able to apprehend the criminals and do so quickly and bring them to the courts, we're not going to have any reduction in criminality. So over the centuries, we have tried barbaric punishment, cruel and unusual punishment to stem crime. Punishment have not really worked over the centuries, and I'm not too sure that any greater increase in penalty will reduce rapes and murders. What is important is that when these occur, that the investigative proficiency of our police force and the citizens cooperating with the police can bring about these criminals to justice in the quickest possible time. Well, let's hear which ones. I mean, for instance, they indicate that we left the economy in a shambles. That is absolute nonsense. When we left, we had stable exchange rate, stable, lowering interest rate. The economy was in a stable environment. We went to the election because we know that some hard decisions had to be taken. And we knew that if we took them, then we certainly would have been a one-term government. We decided to go to the election and hope, if we won, that the hard decisions would be taken. The people did not agree with us. They decided to go with the People's National Party. It is time for the People's National Party to stop the blame game and take the necessary decisions to put the country on the track of recovery. The IMF deal demands hard decisions. Take them and let's move on. We could take the hard decisions, knowing full well that when we take the tax reform, the pension reform, and impose, significant taxation, perhaps making sales of many government properties, perhaps reducing the public sector employees, that politically we would have been damaged. And one of the great failures perhaps of our administration is that many of these things should have been done early in the administration. Now, this is where I think the People's National Party, with a huge majority, must yield some political capital and take the hard decisions that can put Jamaica on the right track.